Welcome to the podcast, everyone. I am your host, Myra, and I have a very special guest here. I have Lisa. Lisa's here with me, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. You might remember Lisa as the client that had the alien abduction session that we shared on the podcast, the alien abduction, close encounters unveiled. Boy, have I gotten a lot of comments and emails from your segment. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm excited for today.
Yes. And one of the reasons I asked Lisa to come, I was very excited. I waited months to sit with you. When you and I first met, you were sharing about your experiences with Sasquatch and how this newfound relationship that you have with Sasquatch beings, and you were sharing all these stories. I'm like, oh my gosh, please come to the podcast so we can talk about this. So let's just start from the beginning, Lisa. How I know that you moved into a certain area. Let's talk about that and how things have unfolded for you.
Sure. I'm from Southern California originally, and I had moved to Idaho and lived there for about 25 years. And then I had always wanted to come back to California, which is my home state. And I ended up taking a job. I work in animal welfare protection, and the job was based in California. So this was a perfect opportunity for me to move back. And I needed to move somewhere centrally in the middle of the state. But I had been from Southern California, so this was an area that I wasn't really familiar with. So literally, I just started kind of looking at available places online, and I was really drawn, even though I'd never been here, to this area that is in Central California in the Los Padres National Forest. And I've always lived like in the middle of a city in a subdivision, and here this is a very mountain cabin community that's kind of like a vacation place for people like in LA or in surrounding large cities where they can get away within a couple hours drive and be up in the mountains. And so I sight unseen kind of picked a couple houses and flew here twice and picked one and bought this house sight unseen as well. And I'm really drawn to it though. And so I'm in the middle of the forest, and I think there's like 13 houses on my street, but there's only 3 people that live here full time. So
oh, wow. Very quiet.
very quiet. Yeah.
Yes.
We have mountain lions, bobcats, lots of coyotes, rabbits, squirrels. So I'm very much in a very quiet community, and I felt so drawn here. And I feel like this peacefulness is what I needed. But my my little peaceful scenario was kind of cut short. I had moved in October, and I have 2 large dogs, and there was no fence behind my house, so I needed to get a fence put in. So it was probably the beginning of November, and it was right before my fence went in, and my dogs needed to go out in the middle of the night. And I put my clothes on. We walked up the back of my house. It's kind of a sloped hill going up, and it gets pretty steep, and it's heavily forested. And I turned the back porch light on, didn't see anything, because you always look for a mountain lion, up in the tree.
Oh, gosh.
So I walked up to where the trees were, and I'm letting my dogs do their business. And it was a little bit after 2 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden I heard this loud crack, and it sounded like it sounded like a baseball bat on a tree. And immediately I was like, that is Bigfoot giving a tree knock. I mean, that was my very first thought. And then I was like,
what?
Yeah.
That thought came into your head.
Exactly. First thought. Yeah.
Wow.
And I thought, no, it's in the middle of the night. It can't be. And I looked at my dogs, they were fine. And about 2 minutes later, there were two more knocks, more farther to my right. And then a couple of minutes later, there were two more knocks and then two more. So I heard 7 knocks that night at that point, and probably within a 3 or 4 minute period. And I was like, okay, time to go back in the house
Oh
because
my gosh.
yeah, I mean, and there's no street lights. I mean, I don't live in the city, so it's
Right.
pitch black.
Did you have a
And
flashlight?
no, I did not. I
No
just had
flashlight.
the back of my deck, and I got back
Wow.
house and I'm like, okay, this is something I've always been interested in. I'm going to try to go back to bed and then I'm going to think about it tomorrow. So that's what I did. So today I kind of Googled Bigfoot Sasquatch sightings in California, and then I narrowed it down to my area, and I did find that there were some that had been recorded. And the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, which is called the BFRO for short, they are a group that's been around for quite a while. They do investigations across the entire United States. They have investigators in each state who will, if you want to make a report of what you've heard, they will go and they will meet with you, and then they will investigate that report to either see if yes, it's a possible Sasquatch, or no, they might be able to debunk it. So I've gone on their site the next morning, and it's www.bfro.net, and I started reading, the different reports that had come in California, and then specifically my area, and then I found out that they do expeditions in each of these
Yes.
states. So I clicked on it, and it talked about the California expedition and the gentleman that leads it. And so I signed up immediately.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I would too.
I just wanted to do this. So
Mhm.
that started my journey on this. And now I'm fully into it. And quite frankly, I feel like my life has taken a turn to where this is a new purpose and focus for me. This is not something that's going to be a short-term interest. I mean, I can see myself, going out and going into the forest or going on these expeditions probably till, the end of my life, because it's so fascinating. And I have to tell you, the people I have met along the way have been just the coolest people, just really concerned about the environment. They're empathetic. They're serious about figuring something out. It's like one of these mysteries because nobody knows what they are. I still don't know what they are. And there's a lot of different theories, and I'm open to any of them. But I think what this has really done for me, it's really given me the ability to just keep an open mind on everything. And I'm just kind of really just receiving information from a lot of different folks. And, I've joined different groups and I've read books and things like that to get a better understanding. And there's just so much out there that we don't know. But there are a lot, probably 90% of the experiences are all the same. And you can't tell me that all these people in California and in Tennessee and all over the US and literally all over the world in some instances are having the same type of sightings or interactions. So you can't tell me that they're not real.
Right. And and it's interesting how so I'm going to be really honest. I spoke to, for those of you that don't know, I have 4 sons. And of my 4 sons, they all have, different beliefs. They love what I do. But recently, I was talking to one of my sons about what I was going to do with you. And it was on Easter. And he looked at me and he goes, "Mom, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." First of all, they don't really listen to my podcast. That we have conversations about it. I love sharing what I learn. But he was just like that. He goes, I believe in the ETs and all of that. He says, but Bigfoot, Mom, really? And I'm like, yes, I totally believe. One of the things I had asked Metatron, and for some of you that don't know, I have a segment with Wendy Gale who channels Archangel Metatron. We meet every month, and it's on the Past Lives with Mayra Rath podcast. I asked him months ago that question about Bigfoot, and he absolutely confirmed that these beings are real. Yes, they're being seen, but the reason they're not caught is because they are interdimensional. And how it's almost like a UFO. There it is, and then there it's not. It's because they are able to move in and out of dimensions very, very easily. And they like to come into our dimension to forage, right? I think maybe they want to be seen, but this is probably why they've never been caught. And I think that's the issue with people not believing is where's the proof?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So why do you think that so many people don't believe?
It's funny when you said that about your sons, because I have two sons. One is just like, Mom, come on. And the other one is totally into it. He wants to come up here. He's like, I want to see, I send him pictures of footprints all the time. We're always talking Bigfoot. People are visual. And I think that's a lot of it. They need to see something to believe it. But if the mountain gorilla, people have been talking about it for years and years and years and years, but no one had any photographs. No one had any, scat or hair or anything like that. And then one time there was a group of researchers out there who found that group up in the mountains. And so now, they're an accepted species. I honestly don't know what Sasquatches are. I'm looking, there's a lot of different theories. One is interdimensional. One is that they're a hominid. They're part human, part monkey or primate. And the hair samples that have been sent in a lot of times will show human DNA and primate DNA, usually chimpanzee, orangutan, or gorilla.
Which are not in the woods at all.
No. So
they're not found in, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's also the thought that, and this is, I'm kind of leaning towards this. I do, they're flesh and blood animal. I do think that, but I also feel like they could be interdimensional. I would not put that past anything because I do think that we have, alien hybrids on Earth. So they're not 100% human either. So I think there could be interdimensional Sasquatch, that zip up in a ship because there's been a lot of, reports that people have seen UFOs in the area or there's orbs in the area, when they've had a Sasquatch sighting. So I don't discount any of that. I have not seen the ships and orbs with a Sasquatch. So, but I'm keeping an open mind on it because I think why not? But I do think that they're very highly evolved. I think humans along the way have lost some of the abilities that we used to have, maybe really intense intuition or extraterrestrial, like ESP type of sensory powers. I think as we've evolved, we've lost a lot of that. Whereas I think with them, they live in the forest. That is their environment because they are so fast. People who have seen them say they just like they're there and they're gone, or they're like
right
working on the side of a hill that there's no way a person could move that quickly. So they're very adapt to their environment. I also think that they can hide very well. They're just better at it because they try to stay down low and not visible. Whereas humans, I think we've lost that survival instinct along the way. live in big cities. We drive cars. We're just different. We've evolved differently, um, and I think that they're just so adept in their environment. And as far as a lot of people talk about cloaking with them, I read a really great book by Ron Morehead. It's called The Quantum Bigfoot, and this book is pretty technical. And like I said earlier, it's kind of like it's a little bit above my head because it talks
Yes.
quantum physics, but there's some theories in there with cloaking that they don't actually disappear, but that they have the ability to move energy. So there's an energy wall in front of them to hide them. So they're actually there, but they put this energy out. So there's a wall there and
Wow.
you're not seeing them. That makes total sense to me.
Hmm.
And there was a woman in that book as well that she was able to reproduce that because she focused in on it. But again, I think humans have lost that ability to dig down that deep and do those kind of things, because I think we just went a different, you come to a fork in the road, and I think they went kind of maybe one way and are really adept in their environment and learned how to cloak and how to stay hidden, whereas we're just so visible everywhere. And
Right.
just think we've lost that ability. Um, but I do think that I do think they're probably, if you look at Native American culture, and I've been looking a lot into this lately, Sasquatches have been around for a long time within different Native American tribes. Apache, Navajo, Chumash, the Thule. I mean, all of those groups. There's Sasquatch in their folklore all over the place.
Mm.
And you look at like the Himalayas, there's a Yeti, there's different things. I think at one time they were probably, I don't want to say working with people, but I think they interacted with people or maybe were part of their culture. Some of those Native American cultures even say that, the women and the male Sasquatches had interbred. And again, I don't know,
Wow.
don't like to talk about it. And if you go and really talk to folks of the Native American culture, like there's things they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about skinwalkers. That is, there's things that they're sacred to them that they don't want to bring up. And this is one of the things that they don't want to bring up. So,
Mhm.
I wouldn't discount that either. There's some folks that say they're interdimensional, but they're, the pets of aliens who drop them down and let them eat and whatever,
Okay.
and then zip them back up. So I think you have to kind of look at all that, and then you just kind of have to, like me, I'm just going out and doing my own research. But what I'm personally finding is the area that my my research partner and I go to. It's so peaceful out there, and I feel like when we go out into the forest, and there is no one around. I mean, we're not near houses, we're not near anything. We're in the middle of the forest. And it is also an old Chumash area out there, where the Chumash elders and the shamans used to go and do their ceremonies.
Ceremony.
Yeah, and then they would go back to their main tribe and kind of live there, but they would go here to do these special things. You can feel that when you're out there. It's just, but I feel like when we go out in the forest now, I almost feel like it's a warm hug. I
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're being. I mean, I can sense that they're watching us, but it is not in a creepy way, not in a threatening way. Some folks who have had Bigfoot experiences, they'll have rocks thrown at them, or they'll have loud screams, like pretty aggressive screams, um, you know, kind of thrown at them to kind of stay out of my area. We don't,
Yes.
we haven't had that. So,
Yeah. So I want to talk about how, you went on that expedition
yeah,
and how you ended up finding a community, and
yeah,
through that some friends, very like-minded friends, and how you sort of broke off a little bit and how you're sort of creating your own little,
yeah.
team. Not even, it's a very small team, very intimate. But so while you're going up there, you have discovered a place where you can communicate with them in a way of leaving things for them. See, I think they know that you're coming with good intentions. You know,
Mhm.
they pick up on that. So talk a little bit about how you discovered this place and what you call it.
So to do that, so I had moved in here, like I said, October of 2023, and I ended up meeting a woman who, by chance, we just started talking about aliens and Bigfoot. And I can't remember how the name came up, but it did. And she lives on a ranch in this valley, and that's by the Los Padres National Forest. There's an entry place in there. You can go into the forest. But you have to go through private property, so the public cannot go back there.
Right.
So I was talking to her, and she said, well, gosh, I saw these huge footprints like a year and a half ago in the snow. She said, she goes, and they were probably like 18, 19 inches long. She goes, we were walking back because she used to ride her horseback in this kind of meadowy area. And she said, we saw the prints, and she said she was with a couple friends hiking, and there was snow on the ground. And one of her friends, they had like a 3-year-old little girl, and she was in a backpack on his back. And my friend said that they saw these large prints that went up to this tree, and then they were gone, which is very typical. You'll see a couple prints and then boom, gone, like poof, disappeared.
Yes.
So they're looking at these prints like, what the heck is that? Because it looked like a human footprint, just giant.
Mm.
And this little girl who was on her dad's back, all of a sudden, and my friend said she was like the quietest little girl, all of a sudden started screaming and was kind of looking up. But they didn't think to look up in the tree. They were looking at her because she was screaming. They couldn't understand why. And now my friend says, I think it was up in the tree. And the little girl saw it. She goes, I think we scared it because the print was really fresh. So my friend, she was telling me that, and then they've heard howls in the valley in that area before, that were not coyote, that were not bear or mountain lions. And mountain lions can scream, and so can bobcats, kind of like a woman. But these were very deep and loud, and there was whooping sounds, which is a typical sound that's been reported across the U.S. that a Sasquatch will make. So I'm listening to her, and this was before I had my wood knock thing on the back of my hill. And so then I had my wood knot thing. Then I signed up for the BFRO expedition. And so the gentleman that leads the expeditions in California, he's on the BFRO side. His name's Robert Collier. He's a LAPD detective, law enforcement. He's been doing Bigfoot things for, I think, since like 2005 or something. So he's had a long time. He's done a lot of expeditions, did a lot of investigations. So when I signed up, we started talking on the phone because he was wanting to know my interests, blah, blah, blah. So I finally told him about my friend, and he said, well, that's not too far of a drive for me. He goes, can I come up there? So our expedition was planned for July the following year. And so he came up in May, and my friend took us out in this private area. Private property. I call it the meadow is what I call it, because it's a flat area, and then there's kind of a ridge of mountains going up. And I was not, so it's Robert, myself, and my friend, and I was not expecting to see anything, to be honest with you, because she had seen that footprint in the snow a year and a half earlier. So obviously it's not going to be there. We found a baby print that was about 9 inches long in the mud. Just one. And then we found
with toes, right?
With toes, yeah. Those were the first photographs that I had. I was just like, oh, because I'd never seen one before, And then you could see either mom or dad's print next to it, it almost looked like this baby, it looked like the trail was muddy and the baby had stepped in the mud and the mom or dad was like up above the trail and grabbed it kind of. I mean, you could just, like get out of the mud kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the bigger print was almost 19 inches long. It was huge. And it was probably 8 inches wide. And those were the first photographs I ever took of any Sasquatch prints. And I mean, I looked at those things forever because you could see the toes, you could see the mid-tarsal break in the foot. And that's one thing that we look for when we look for prints, because a bear has a similar, if a bear steps, they have claws though, and Sasquatch don't. They have toes with a toenail. So if a bear steps, you'll see the indentation at the top where the toes are of the nail or the claw. Wow. And that's one way you can tell, but a lot of bears will double step. So it'll be 2 bare footsteps. So it looks like a Sasquatch print, but but a Sasquatch has what they call a mid-tarsal break, which is what humans have in their foot. It's kind of like your arch.
Sure.
So that's the one way to kind of tell the difference. So anyway, we saw those, my mouth about dropped. And then we saw, as we were going through, Robert, we found 2 tree structures and he took a picture of me in one and they were woven at the top, almost teepee-like looking, but not sticks just placed together. We're talking intricately woven, which was, when you really look at it, you're just like, okay, I get it now. And quite frankly, to do something like that, you have to have a thumb. It has to be something that has a thumb to be able to do that.
Right.
We saw 2 TP structures. We saw those. And then this was the kicker. We went kind of to the other end of the meadow and we were on a little game trail and we started to pass this tree. And I just looked over and I saw this kind of round circular indentation in the ground, but it was dark. So it was fresh, because when you see fresh dirt, it's darker than dried out dirt, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. So I'm like, what is that? So I walked up there and I'm like, okay, there's a circle. And he walks up and my friend walked up and I said, that looks like a butt, like something sat there. And that is exactly what it was. It is a Sasquatch butt print. There's 13 of them known in the US. There could be more, I don't know. But my little group of folks, several months later came back and made a cast of it. So we have a cast of it. Wow. And there, where the testicle sac was. So it was a boy. Actually,
oh my gosh.
We had casted it. It took almost 60 pounds of dental plaster to cast it. It was huge. It's about 38 inches wide.
Wow.
And you can see the butt crack in the middle. I mean, I hate to, be kind of blunt,
yes.
and you can see where the testicles were. And I'm just, I'm actually recasting it right now into a lighter weight thing. I'm going to hang it up on my wall because who has a, Sasquatch?
Right.
So we found all those things, and I think that just completely hooked me because it was so close to where I live. Like I can get there in like 9 minutes to,
yes.
the trail to access all that. And then it takes a little while to get back there, but that's kind of what we did. And then I went on the expedition, and you do sign an NDA when you go on these BFRO expeditions, and that's to keep the sites confidential. So, you can talk about what you saw on the expedition, but they don't want you to disclose the location. So we went about 2.5 hours from my location in the Sequoia National Forest. We had several, in fact, the guys that got there the day before the group did, they had what they call a Class A daytime sighting. They actually saw a head pop up behind a boulder when they were out scouting the areas. There's old Forest Service roads back there. That area had been closed, I believe, the year before because of burning, because of fires. So it was reopened back up. But the night before I got there, the guy that I ended up camping next to, that night he had a tent on the top of his car, and he was up there and he heard this growling sound underneath his car. And then he heard the heavy steps and he kind of peeked out and he could see, it's dark. Obviously, there's no street lights and you're in a camp, but something, 2 legs, bipedal, probably about 9-10 feet tall, walking away. And several of the folks on our expedition during the 5 days that we were there, they had handprints on their car. We had, when we would go out at night, we did see some glowy eyes out there, and they're about the size of tennis ball. I mean, they're not the size of tennis balls. They look big, but some red eyes and some amberish colored eyes. We actually had one, as we were in the forest, all of a sudden start barking like a dog, which they have been known to mimic sounds.
Sure.
And we were the only group up there camping, and nobody had a dog. You can't take any dogs with you. So I don't know. There was no dogs. So it's like, where did that come from? We also walked through, like we were starting to walk on the Forest Service Road. There was a group of, I think, 5 of us, and I almost, like, it was like walking into a cloud of something that smelled like sour milk. And I just stopped and I was like, do you guys smell that? And it was probably about a 3 foot wide in front, kind of in front and back of us. And there were 2 Sasquatches on either side of the road, kind of as sentries. And I think their smell was just coming into the middle of this Forest Service road. We didn't know we were there until we got off that road, because the people who stayed at the beginning of the road said they saw 2. And we didn't find that out till afterwards, but I smelled a very strong, people have described some of their scents as maybe like garbage or feces or death or rotting meat or something just really kind of pungent. But for me, it smelled like curdled sour milk.
Interesting.
And it was so strong. So
wow.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. And then I was on our expedition, this was kind of another weird thing. There was a creek like right by my campsite, and I was sitting down there. It was early in the morning, and like no one else in the campground. There was 22 of us. And I was sitting there reading a book, and I was just drinking a cup of coffee, and I was down by the stream, just kind of enjoying the morning. And something started whistling at me. And Robert, who was our expedition leader, he was coming down the way, and he goes, "Did you just hear that?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you just whistle at me?" And he said, "No." He goes, "Everybody's asleep." He goes, "I think you just got whistled at," because they do whistle at people.
They do.
Yeah. And I couldn't, in front of me, this stream the foliage was so dense, and it kind of went up a hill. So I couldn't see anything. We didn't smell anything. But I was like, "Hi,"
Yes.
And I left apples and marbles and things for them. There was a log there, but they didn't take it when I was there. But it was just kind of funny. But one thing that was really cool, we would do our expeditions at night. Usually about 9 o'clock, we'd go out for like 3 or 4 hours because they're seem to be more active at night. But during the day, I went with 2 of the gals that were there, and then a guy who was also his first time, and it was my first time. So we took off during the day, and we just went on one of the Forest Service roads that we had been on the night before. And as we're walking up, on the right-hand side, it looked like that area had kind of been logged because there was a lot, and those were sequoias, so they're huge trees. Right. So there's a huge tree that had been cut down that was probably about 4 or 5 feet wide. It was just, it was kind of cut to the ground, so it was a stump. So we left. So with the gal that I was with, she left some food up there. And so then we got back on the road and walked up, came back down about 10 minutes later. All of it was gone. And this pristine, absolutely beautiful black crow's feather was left in its place as a gift. So she was so excited. And it was so pretty because it was pristine. It looked like it had just been washed. It was shiny, not any dirt on it. It wasn't, ratty looking or anything. Yeah. And, but she had left marbles, and she had left a couple food items. So at that point, I just emptied my backpack, what I had. I had a really weird assortment of stuff. I had some beef jerky, I had an apple, I had some dried fruit chews from Trader Joe's, and then I had some ginger chews from Trader Joe's. And I'm like, I don't know if they like those or not. We'll just leave them. And so I left those, and we walked down, and then we came back about an hour later, and everything was gone. But I only got a little pebble. I didn't get
Wow.
a creature, so
You got a pebble.
got a little pebble. But then this group of folks, we kind of went across the road and went up the hill, and I found, gosh, we probably found 30 footprints of different sizes.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so we called Robert and we called everybody from the camp, and they came and they ended up casting some of those. So it was pretty fun.
These expeditions that this gentleman does, how long are those? How many days?
They start on Thursday. Everybody usually gets there Wednesday though, and then they end on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. So you're up there a while.
Yeah. And the one in June, I believe that one is closed, but I believe he's going to try to do another one this fall. So if anybody's interested, definitely go on the BFRO.net site and look under the California Expeditions, or, they can contact you and I can give them Robert's information to get more, a little bit more about the expeditions. But they're really fun. And the people, I think what's really cool is, I've gotten on Facebook pages and stuff, but there's so many people that are like naysayers and don't believe. And it's like, why are you on a Bigfoot website if you don't even think that there's a possibility that they might be out there? But just like, where's my photo? Where's proof? Where's a body? And, they're not real. And I look at it this way. I think they are higher evolved than we are in many areas. Like in some areas, obviously, we're more involved. We build houses, we invent things and stuff. But with them, they are such masters of their environment that I don't think we can touch that. And I feel like because of that, they can outsmart you. They're not stupid. And I think one could probably be right next to you and you wouldn't even know it, because they live in that environment and we don't. We are intruders. That is their home. And so they know every nook and cranny. They know every tree. And I would not also be surprised if they can kind of, become invisible or dematerialize and go into a tree to hide. I mean, I would not put that past them because I don't know. So, but yeah, I think that, a lot of people on those that go on the Facebook groups, I would just be very careful if you're thinking about going down that route. And I would definitely go on the BFRO group. And then there's some other groups that are pretty legit, where because a lot of people don't want to share their experiences. Number one, they don't know what they saw. Most people are like, I'm seriously doing this as a researcher now because I'm curious, but a lot of folks are just, kind of just in the moment witnesses where they never experienced to see one, or expected to see when they were just hiking or they were camping and they had an experience, or one tapped on their tent, or, they caught a
oh my gosh.
Your mind is just like, okay, what was that? And it had to be a bear, but obviously it was on 2 feet. And, I saw it run up on the hill on 2 feet. Bears can go up on 2 feet for a very short amount of time, but not for a long amount of time. And they don't run that way. And they don't have arms that, hang down past their knees. So your mind, I think, wants to shut some of that down, just like people who in alien encounters, your mind shuts down because it's not something you can wrap your head around.
Yeah, yes, it's not rational. I get it.
Yeah.
Wow. One of the things that you did when we were sort of waiting for today to sit and talk is you were sending me some videos of Ron Morehead videos from YouTube, which I had no idea who he was. But wow. So I will see if I could link. I'm not sure if legally I can, if I could link some of these on the podcast, but if not, please check out Ron Morehead. And you sent me the Samurai Chatter video, And I think another one where you can actually, they're out there. I mean, it is
Hmm.
nighttime. So, and they bring in their equipment so that they can capture. And so, can you talk a little bit about what they sound like?
So Ron Morehead had done this research project up in the Sierras at a camp, and they called it. You can either Google Samurai Chatter or Sierra Sounds, and you can play the audio, and it is amazing
It
because
was amazing.
yeah, I mean, there's hoots and there's hollers, almost like you would hear an ape, but then there is this very, very fast string of some of these are English words too, which that's what kind of freaked me out a little bit because it's like you can hear them every once in a while say a word in English, but they're talking so fast.
Yes.
Humans can't talk that fast. And that was also brought up in Ron Morehead's book that I was referenced earlier, The Quantum Bigfoot. There was a lady, two people in there that were linguists that work with governments and things like that,
Mm.
and they've analyzed these tapes. And humans don't have the ability to go that high or that low, nor that fast and be clear. And so they were absolutely just, kind of flabbergasted by what was in these tapes. But some of it's this chatter, and then some of it sounds a little bit like monkeys, but then there is clear human pronunciation of words. And I don't know if these are words that these creatures have heard campers say before or that they picked up, but they
Sure.
definitely are chattering back and forth and they have their own language. I think that's
Yes, it was a full-on language. It was so interesting.
yeah, it is. So I would really highly recommend people just kind of take a look at that. And, I mean, you can just, it takes like 5 minutes to listen to it, but I think there's a longer version as well. But it is amazing because they're intelligent, and I think we have a lot to learn from them if we are open to that. But again, I think a lot of humans, you have to see it. You want a dead body, you want this, and I don't think they're here to hurt us. I mean, I think they want to be left alone or they're curious about us. And the reason I say that is because some folks, their encounters have been somewhat scary or aggressive, like if they run into one and it's throwing rocks to get them to move away or out of the area, or, it will project large, screams and sounds at them, yelling at them to like, get out of here. This is my territory. This is my land, my home. And we would do that too if somebody came into our house, or our
Yes.
property. So it's really no different than what humans do. It's just at a different level because they don't think they have their own language, but we don't quite understand it. But yeah, I do feel that most of them, I think, are curious, but I do think they want to be left alone.
Yeah. So there's no proof. No one has ever been hurt,
No,
or physically, um, you know,
they have. Well,
like
I will
is
tell
there
you. So, well,
like
not
are there any mysterious deaths that take place
no,
out there?
no. There's one very famous case called Ape Canyon, and this was up by Mount St. Helens. It was way before Mount St. Helens erupted. There was a group of miners up in that area, and there was a miner's cabin, and they were up there mining or logging, I can't remember, and they were out during the day, and they think these rocks started being thrown at them, and this was, I don't remember the time period. I want to say like the early 1900s, might have been the late 1800s. Anyway, it's called Ape Canyon though, and you can read about it. But these miners, or I think they were loggers, anyway, they were having rocks thrown at them, and they were hearing these loud sounds and stuff, so it scared them. So they went to the cabin because they didn't really have a way to get out of the area. I think the the logging crew or whatever is going to pick them up later. So they went to this cabin, and during the night, these creatures attacked this cabin. Now, it's been well documented. Whether it's 100% true or not, I can't say. But these men did try to shoot at these creatures, and there were several creatures, and the cabin was fairly well, assaulted. I mean, with large rocks and things like that. So that clearly tells me that those creatures did not want them there. So that's about the only, that's probably the most aggressive thing. And, but also too, looking at these events and reports throughout the world, like the Yeti seems to be, in the Himalayas, seems to be much more aggressive. Like the encounters in like Washington, Oregon, and in most of the US are much milder. It's, more of they walk around a tent and they might, hit a tent or something to try to get people to move away. But again, we've had no aggressive tendencies at all towards us. I will tell you, my research partner, her husband, on the very first BFRO expedition they went on, I feel so sorry for him. They were in the tent at night, and he's very much a sensitive and an empath, and he feels things, and I don't think he really wanted to go on that expedition, but she did.
Okay.
So he went with her, and they were asleep at night, on the ground, and he was awake, and he could hear something walking out around their tent, and something poked him through the tent with a finger really hard.
Oh
and he was so scared, he didn't say anything. The next morning, he had a bruise about 6 inches round on his back.
Oh, wow.
And every time, and they've gone on the BFRO expeditions every year since then, and every single time his car gets a handprint or a footprint, or, they mess with him a lot. So
they do.
He's come out with us a couple times. And I love him because he's very open to it. And they came out and we went off this one road that I hadn't been down yet. And when I was with the two of them, he and I both heard this mumbling. And that's the first time I had heard that out there. And it was a low mumbling. It was like people were talking, but you couldn't quite make out the words, which is similar also to some of those Sierra sounds that Ron Morehead had reported. And then we also smelled something that smelled like lilac. And we're in the mountains. There's no lilac.
Right. How interesting.
And his first thing out of his mouth was, "That's a female." Because
oh my gosh.
Around. Yeah. And then after that, we were still walking on that road, and I looked off to my left, and there was and we're in the forest, but there was kind of a group of trees, and there was this one really tall tree. There was no wind. And in this tree, in the middle of it, there was 2 branches kind of, over each other, and they were just going up and down like that. And I looked at that and I said, is there a younger Bigfoot standing on that lower branch, grabbing onto the top one? You know how you kind of go like this?
Yes.
Only 2 branches within 12 trees that were violently going up and down. And
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, let's go over there. And he's like, no. There that day. So, but I think it was a little one watching us.
Yeah. Lisa, do you ever go up by yourself?
I was with him and his wife. Yeah.
Okay. You never go alone.
I don't go alone. And I'll tell you why. Honestly, I don't feel like I carry bear spray because there are bears out here. But I don't have a gun, and I'm more worried about a mountain lion than anything else. I'm not worried about a Bigfoot. I feel like if they did not want me there, they would throw rocks at me. And if that was the case, I would just say, "I'm sorry, I'm bothering you today," and I would walk back out. But a mountain lion would scare me.
Yes.
Bears, you can say go bear, and at least I have bear spray. But a mountain lion is something I don't want to run into. And I do have two big dogs, but I don't take them out there because from the reports that have been filed, they don't like dogs. Dogs bark and alert at them and, make the human or the person aware that they're there. And if they're trying to hide, if they're trying to walk you or, don't want to be seen, the dog just adds another, element in there that I think that they don't want. So I don't take my dogs back out there.
So what's next for you, Lisa? I know that you go up and you leave some gifts in a certain place too, right?
So we started this last fall. So the girl I do the research with, and then the girl who originally had shown Robert and I the footprints, and we found the tree structures in the butt print. The three of us girls started going out last fall, and we found this log. We call it the gifting log. And we started setting up, it's kind of funny. I mean, our gifting log, most people set apples out for them. No, we had to take it up a couple notches. We like full on started doing this charcuterie board of, nuts. We started baking like banana bread for them and carrot muffins and, I make these seed nut bars with, all healthy stuff. But with maple syrups, it'd be like a little nut bar for them. Beef jerky and pork rinds, and we usually we leave apples and other fruits. They don't seem to like anything orange though, which is kind of funny. They don't like oranges or
citrus.
I had a Mexican papaya, which when you open it up, it's that bright orange color. We had put that. No, didn't want any of that. And they didn't want any mangoes. And I don't think we didn't try any peaches last year, but I might. Oh, I did put some dried peaches out and they didn't eat that. So it doesn't seem like orange is their color or the taste, but we have left marbles because they seem to like marbles. And that's been interesting because I can, and this gifting log is probably totally 40 feet long. It's a log that fell down, and we probably put food on maybe about a 8-foot section of it. And the first time we left food, this log, it fell over, and it's over this kind of, I would say, a ditch. So underneath this log is space before it hits the ground. Yeah. So the first time we left food, it was just kind of a fluky thing. It's just like, oh, we'll leave them a little food. And we left them part of a turkey sandwich too, which was kind of funny. And we came back the following week, and they had taken some branches from a tree that was not around us that had moss on it, one larger branch and one smaller branch, and they had woven those branches together and leaned them up against our log, but the longer branch that they used was, I want to say, probably 8 feet long, and they had tucked it under our log. So there's no way, even if that tree that those branches came from, if those branches fell, that they would have fallen. So that large branch was literally underneath our log. There's just no way it would natural, because you have to look at that when you see things like that. Is that a natural tree fall, or is something placed? This was the little branches on the two larger branches were woven together.
And so you need fingers for that.
You need a thumb. Yeah, you need fingers. Yes. So like a bear can't do that. Obviously a deer can't do that, or a mountain lion. So, and there's no people that go back there. It's just not, it is not easy to get to. Like I said, you have to go through private property. There's no access.
Right.
So that was the first thing that they left for us. And then after that, we would go out, I would say probably 3 times a month, sometimes 4, usually on the weekends. And I'd go out every day if I had somebody to go with me, because I just like walking back there. And the more you're out there, the more you absorb the environment is
Oh, and they
maybe.
already know you, I'm sure. They they already know.
I'll share this with you in a sec. So yeah, so we there was one time where, and we sometimes we'd see some big footprints near the log, but a lot of the times we didn't. And I was like, okay, how are they getting there without leaving a print? And we ended up going down this horse trail, probably about a mile down, and we found this area. And I fully think that they allow us to see prints that they want us to see. I think if they did not want us to see them, that they would make sure that they covered them up or that we wouldn't see them. So we went down this trail and we ended up in this area that has some natural water seeping up from the ground, kind of like a natural spring, but it's not a full-on little stream or anything. It's more like it's almost kind of bubbling up out of maybe some little holes in the ground. So there was a lot of clay in that area. And we were walking around looking, and we found, it is so freaking cute. It was a 4.5-inch baby print.
Wow.
Yeah. And the smallest one ever found that has been documented was 3.5 inches. So ours is pretty close to that. There was just one. And then right next to it was a 9-inch print, almost like a big brother or sister. And then right above that was a little knuckle print from the baby.
Wow.
And we casted all those. So you can see the finger knuckles on it.
It's
and
incredible.
It's tiny. But I looked at that, and I have to tell you that completely changed my entire focus kind of what we were doing, because I'm a mom, and it's just like, there's babies out here, there's a mom out here, and
Sure.
I am going to do everything I can to protect them,
Mhm.
because I don't want anything to happen to them. So
I know.
yeah, and
And
it's hard when you realize there's little ones out there. It's like, okay, this is a family that lives back here. We've documented 20-inch prints, 18-inch prints, 16-inch prints, 9-inch prints, 12-inch prints, and that 4.5. So there's at least like a family unit of 3, if not more. And that just really hit home to me. And I was like, okay, that changes the game for me. I've not posted anything on Facebook or anything on social media about it. This is more for my own research, and
right.
we casting really good prints as we've seen them. But we, at that point, the babies out there just realizing that there's a mom, there's somebody just like me,
Yeah.
and who's watching her child. And so I started thinking about that, and I thought, I wonder if the adults are going to each end of this very long log that fell down, which is our gifting log. And instead of them walking down alongside of it and leaving their prints, they're putting their kids on the top of the log to run down and pick up all the food and the
Yes.
because they wouldn't leave a track on the log. And when I started thinking about that, the next time we went out, I walked out there and I just burst out laughing because all of the food was gone. All of the marbles were gone, and there was a pile of poop.
Yes.
On the thing. And we looked at it, and, when you're looking, I've learned to read tracks now, and I'm on a Facebook group that like looks at animal scat as well. And when you've got a predator that's eating, like a coyote or a mountain lion or something like that, they eat meat. And so their scat has hair in it, it has bone, it has, it's meat stuff, and it tends to have smell. This was really weird. It was all berries, and almost looked like pieces of wood. Like if you took a bunch of sawdust and mixed it with some chopped up berries, kind of. And so I put it in a bag. We sent it off to be analyzed. I don't know what it was. I did post it on a Facebook page and said, does anybody know what kind of scat this is? Because I thought maybe it's a raccoon, maybe it's a, I wasn't really sure. It wasn't round. It looked like dog poop. It was, little cylinders, and there were three little pieces, and you know, and the interesting thing, and we haven't gotten results back yet, but the interesting thing is we saw that scat, and we've never seen scat before in two other places. One was fairly fresh, and it was on a little trail where we found a bunch of footprints. And then the other one was on another trail where we found footprints as well. Those are the only places we've ever seen that kind of scat. So I'm really curious to see what that is going to reveal, because nobody could identify it. And I have a trapper friend who lives in Idaho who used to work for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I sent him photos of that, and he goes, I've never seen anything like that.
Interesting.
So I don't know what it was, and it was small, but I thought, did you poop on the log? Is that what you left me? You left me a pile of poop, feather, or something pretty, So
Oh my gosh, I love that.
we'll see. But we did have kind of an incident out by our gifting log. Some folks that live in that valley had taken their dog out. So we put peanut butter jars out there as well, because there have been documented reports where Bigfoot has taken peanut butter jars, or like gone into a camper's campground and opened a peanut butter jar. And again, you need a thumb to do that. So that's not, a bear,
Right.
but it would probably be torn up. This was twisted. So we had a peanut butter jar, and I had probably half the jar left, and I had stuck it up there, and I had put the lid back on, and I twisted it one full turn.
Okay.
We nestled it into the branches on the gifting line. Next week we came out, the jar was there, but it was only a quarter turn, and something had opened it up and stuck its finger in and like globbed the peanut butter up on the side of the jar.
Yes.
And then put the frickin' lid back on. So
That is funny.
it is. And when we've left peanut butter jars, they've just taken them. And, and I have to say, okay, maybe a bear did that. I don't know. But, we've not found, usually a bear will rip stuff up kind of.
Right.
But there's just been a couple times where they've put the lid back on. So
That's really interesting.
yeah. And then we did have a game camera out there. This was weird. So one reason, a lot of people say, well, how come we don't have pictures of Bigfoot? And if they have a higher level of frequency than we do to manipulate things, like mentally, or can manipulate energy, there is, definitely the thought that they can manipulate a camera, which tends to happen. A lot of people who put game cameras out, like, either it doesn't record anything, or it records pictures, but they don't show up. Or they might catch like the edge of some hair, but you don't ever see one like standing there smiling, or, walk past, or, like you see game cameras with deer, and the animals are aware of them because they emit that iridescent red light. And there might be a frequency coming from the cameras too, because when the game cameras are tripped, animals have a very heightened sense of like sound and just frequency.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And so they tend to avoid them. And I think that's why they haven't, there's been some that may have been captured on game cameras, but we don't know. But the one time we did put ours up, we had almost 800 pictures on there. Only 171 showed up. And this was the interesting thing. So it was up for a week. And the day that we put it up, you could see us in the camera because we were adjusting it and setting it, and so there were pictures of us. And then all of a sudden, we weren't in the pictures, but like it was what do I want to say? It was stationary and it was focused on our gifting log. All of a sudden, the camera's taking a picture sideways and upside down and this way and angled, and there'd be wavy things in the middle of it. And it's like, okay,
So,
something was
moving it or manipulating it.
and if you moved it, you'd have to grab it. You'd have to have a thumb to do that because, game cams are probably about 5 by maybe 7 by 4. They're pretty big. So something was manipulating it, and the pictures were wavy. We didn't get any animals on it because we were also trying to see, are there birds coming and eating the stuff on the gifting log, or are there deer, or, are coyotes jumping up there and eating it? Got none of that. And a lot of the pictures had this, if in the movie Predator, when that with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when that alien being thing cloaks, it's like this memory kind of thing that, blends into, the background, but you can see the shimmery, it's like doesn't look right. That was in several of our photos. And Robert, our expedition leader, had a friend look at it, and he said, I think you have a cloaking Bigfoot right there. I mean, we can't say for sure, because it's not like he was standing there saying, okay, I'm going to cloak. And, but to have a perfectly clear picture, and yet this tree right here and this blob is just shimmery, doesn't make any sense.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too how certain things are taken, other stuff is left. The marbles, where do they go? Like any other animal cannot pick up the marbles. Right. So it's just so interesting.
Well, so some birds I think might, blue jays are pretty inquisitive, so they might grab a marble, but we have like regular sized marbles and then larger ones. I don't think that they could get a bigger one. And there's some ravens out there, and ravens like shiny
yes.
Yes. But this was fairly interesting. So we once I found out there were babies, I put out 2 little stuffed kittens, like a little stuffed animal, like a child would have. And one was a little black and white one, and then the other one was an orange striped little kitty.
Okay.
And I stuck them in the log, in our gifting log, along with the food, and those were gone. And
interesting.
Yeah, and we ended up when the gifting log was what I say compromised, when the couple came out with their dog and their dog kind of shoved stuff off of the log and kind of got it sent everywhere. And I could tell that the Sasquatch family maybe didn't like that, because one of the gals I was with had stuck some sticks in the ground by the gifting log. And at the time I was like, I don't know if we should do that, because we don't know what that means. Like, offering them food is an olive branch, of
right.
we'd like to, make peace with you. But I don't know what sticking sticks in the ground means, because we have seen that out there, but we don't know if that means this is my territory, or this is property, or go away, or welcome. We don't know. And when this couple had gone out with their dog, unfortunately, when Robert and I went back in there, those sticks were pulled up out of the ground, and 2 of them were completely smashed. And one of our marbles was left over there, almost like, here, take this back.
Oh, no.
And one of the little stuffed kitties that had been gone for about 3 weeks was placed on a stick, and it was placed on the ground by the gifting log. But the kitty, if something had brought it back and dropped it, the kitty was actually like riding on a stick. Its little legs and stuff were put on the stick. So like you pick the stick up, the stick, yeah.
Wow.
And I'm happy to share any photos with you of that, so you can see it.
Yes.
That's kind of interesting, but so we kind of gave the gifting area a rest. We put another recorder and a game cam up in another location just to kind of catch sounds and stuff. And I did set some food and a peanut butter jar on another log, which was in a totally different location because we're not going to use that original gifting area anymore. I kind of just feel like it was compromised. And when Robert and I had gone back out there to change batteries, all of the stuff we had left for them was gone. So
Okay. So
but
new location. Beautiful.
yes, but one of our marbles was left there.
Okay. For now.
Yeah. But it's like bear wouldn't pick that up, and I don't think a bird would, it's stolen a marble from our previous gifting log would have blown it over and set it
Right.
if that makes sense. So I feel like they're there. And the gal that I go out with now, she and I went out there 2 weeks ago, and she has one of those sound bowls that you can around, and it makes the really pretty, it's almost like a tuning fork sound. So we're out in the middle of the forest, and she didn't have it with her, and we're just sitting there, and we're talking, and we heard a whoop, and I just started talking, and I said, okay, I know the dog came down to her original gifting log, and I'm very sorry that happened, and I know that you left us the kitty and you left us the marble, and we still want to interact with you, and we just would love to learn more about you, and we're here to protect you. We went through the whole thing, and it was the weirdest thing because we're sitting there, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of the forest. This tuning fork sound just starts.
Wow.
Almost like she had her sound bowl going, and it went for about a little over a minute. And she and I kind of looked at each other, and I'm like, you heard that right? She's like, yeah. She goes, that's like I just pulled out my sound bowl or something. And she didn't have it.
Like a frequency.
Yes. And then it started again, and it went for about another minute, and then it stopped. And we both kind of looked at each other, and she talks to a gentleman who has gone on our expeditions before. I've never met him. But he lives up in Northern California, and he has a cabin, and he has squatches that come down almost nightly and like chatter and talk and leave gifts and the whole bit. And she mentioned it to him, and he says, I think they were saying, we want you to bring your sound bowl back.
Okay.
Because mimicking that sound for us. And so that's kind of where we're at. I just feel so privileged every time I go out there, and it's such a peaceful feeling. It's like, I know if they wanted to hurt us, they could tear our limbs off if they wanted to, and there's not that feeling at all. We did leave and I'm going to be going back out there this week. I did read a report of this gentleman who said he had an encounter, not here in California. I don't know what state he was in, but he had an encounter when he was out hunting, and he had for some reason, he had a bright yellow towel with him that was like kind of tied onto his backpack. And he was walking through the forest looking for a place to set up to hunt, I guess. And he came across 2 Sasquatches. And one ran away, and the other one kind of stood there. And I think it was about 15 feet away from him. And he said it kind of grinned at him, which was kind of creepy a little bit,
Ooh.
I mean, because he didn't know, and he had never seen them, and, wasn't a believer, non-believer, or anything. He just crossed them.
Yes.
And he could tell it was a female because she had breasts. And he said he goes, I could tell, he said, such a human-like face. Very human, the emotion and just the looks she was giving him with her eyes were very human-like nose and smaller lips. The other one had more like kind of rough, masculine kind of looking face, but he thought that the other one might've been younger. So anyway, she's standing there, and he said this whole thing took like probably less than 2 minutes, but she was staring at this yellow towel. And he said, I just have this feeling I should probably like offer it to her because obviously he didn't. He goes, I never thought like I should shoot her. That never went into my head. He said, because I felt like she was so human, it just stopped me in my tracks.
Wow.
Um, and he said, so I undid the towel and he goes, I walked forward and there was like a little kind of a stump there. And he set the towel on there and he said, she ran over and grabbed it. He goes, so fast. He says, I couldn't even do it. And she ran up the hill. And so I was telling my partner about this and I said, maybe we should leave a yellow towel. So we tied a yellow towel around this tree branch. So I'm really interested to see. I'm hopefully going to go out there this week and I'm interested to see if that's gone. So,
Oh, I'm so excited. Yes, let me know.
but I feel like I should bring kids' toys or something out.
I know.
Curious, and I think
A
they,
ball. A
yeah, well,
ball.
that's what I was thinking too. A ball.
Mhm.
I will tell you this. This was a very odd thing. This was about 2 weeks ago. And it was the last, right before the last, yeah, it was the last time we had gone out. I don't usually, like, I'll occasionally dream, but if I do dream, I'm not somebody that has like reoccurring dreams. For about 3 nights in a row, I had this reoccurring dream that I needed to put a marble on the top of the corner, the corner fence posts in my backyard where my fence is. And my fence, goes up this hill into the forest. It's very dense and thick. And I just had this dream that I needed to leave one of the white marbles that had like a lot of rainbow colors on it on the top corner of the left and the right fence post in the corner. So I brought that up to my partner and I brought it up to Robert and they're like, well, have you done it yet? And I was like, no. I said, that was just so weird that I had that dream. So I did, it wasn't last week, it was a week before that. And so I put them out on Sunday. Tuesday morning, the left one was gone. I was like, holy crap. And Thursday morning, the other one was gone. And I thought, okay, let's try to debunk this. I don't think, I went out there, I looked inside my fence, I looked outside the fence, there's no marbles anywhere. And I thought, a squirrel might have taken it, a blue jay might have taken it, but that's just weird,
Yes.
that dream, and they're gone. So,
Yeah. So interesting.
yeah.
Wow, Lisa. I've had such an amazing time just hearing all of this. I mean, I only heard parts of it and I wanted to have you on here. So thank you so much.
Oh,
This
you're welcome. You're
this was
welcome.
a lot of fun hearing about it. And I really am such a believer of this. And you're so sincere in how you want to help them. You can see the emotion, and I think they know that. And I
Yeah.
think you're going to do you're going to really discover some amazing things up ahead.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm very curious but also very protective. And I just want to understand them. I don't want to go live with them. I don't want them like knocking on my door at night or anything like that. But it's just something that, from a childhood interest is I've been presented with an opportunity to explore it more. So
Yeah.
I would highly recommend if anybody has anything like that you definitely, go on an expedition or, explore that a little bit more. And, if anybody has any questions, I'm, happy to answer them as well. So
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And once again, I'm going to link some. I'm hoping that I can link some stuff over to YouTube, so you can listen to what those sounds. That was fascinating.
yeah.
So thank you once again, and I wish you the best of luck. Please stay in touch.
Oh, I will. I'll keep you up to date.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Okay, bye.